Well, as the smoke clears and the dust has settled on Nikola Jokic's abrupt playoff ousting at the hands of the Minnesota Timberwolves in Game 7 of his semifinal round, the ramifications to his overall legacy and historical placement amongst other all-time greats is still reeling from the consequences of blowing a 20-point lead in the second half at home. The optics, admittedly, are not good, because after all, great players win Game 7s, period. And the pressure to do so when at home is even greater, while factoring in a 20-point lead in the third quarter makes this a crushing blow for any all-time case to be made on behalf of Jokic. And accordingly, his legacy at the moment will suffer. It has to, because that is the responsibility of the all-time great player. And while he is that, an all-time great, there are certain conversations he was attempting to become a part of with a title defense this season. While falling short of that goal means he doesn't get into those levels. Not yet, anyway. But what all-time great is without blemish? It was also entirely unacceptable for Kobe Bryant to lose 4 games to 1, including 3 straight in an NBA Finals round, to a team that had 0 top 75 all-time players with Shaquille O'Neal as his teammate. Prime LeBron James blew a 2-1 series lead with 2 other Hall of Famers while playing against a team with 1 All-Star, while scoring 0 points in clutch time for that entire 6-game series and getting outscored for the series by a 6'2" journeyman bench player. He took a gentleman's sweep in another final series while playing with 2 other top 75 players all time and a 3rd Hall of Famer. And he got actually swept 2 times in the NBA Finals. And speaking of sweeps, Shaquille O'Neal has done that 6 times, the most in NBA history. 6 times the most dominant player ever couldn't win a single game in a series. Jerry West, the NBA's logo, was 1-8 in the NBA Finals, with his one and only win coming only after he paired up with Wilt Chamberlain. And speaking of Wilt, he himself was just 2-4 in the finals throughout his illustrious career. Oscar Robertson, another consensus top 15 player all time, has just 1 ring in his entire 14-year career as the 2nd best player on a team playing beside Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Meanwhile, Hakeem Olajuwon lost in the first round of the playoffs 7 times in his 14 postseason appearances, including 4 consecutive times in a row during the very heart of his prime, aged 25 to 28. There is no such thing as a perfect resume in the entirety of NBA history, aside from one. The one true and undisputed GOAT, Michael Jeffrey Jordan, who essentially never lost a title for his entire prime once he got a single All-Star beside him. Aside though from Jordan, players' legacies are defined by their failures, balanced with their successes, and at the end of the day, seeing which outweighs which and by how much. That is what makes the all-time legends the legends that they are. Overcoming failure and finding a path to success. And one way to measure the level of greatness is by determining how difficult that path is. While it is fundamentally very challenging, though, to measure or weigh difficulty of opposition, it is easy to determine the level of supporting casts. And how good your surrounding players are substantially lightens the load of the task of winning. It makes the process of winning easier. It heightens the demand to win and win at prolific rates. And while the statistical inflation of individual players from era to era can vary greatly based on pace-specific differential, rules changes, and just general defensive effort league-wide, the one thing that has been universal for the entirety of post-merger NBA history is the way we measure players against their peers. So while no one is excusing the unacceptability of absolutely choking away a 20-point lead in a home Game 7, we have to evaluate what is a fair level of expectation to place on Nikola Jokic overall, based on the support he has had to this stage of his career. And the best way to do so is by comparing his supporting casts versus the others he is now being routinely compared with, and looking at every MVP winner over the last 40 years, starting with Larry Bird in 1984. And since that season, 23 different players have won a league MVP. And these 23 players, in some order and combination, make up a significant portion of the top 10 to 20 all-time players in NBA history. Since Nikola Jokic just completed the 9th season of his career, I have looked at all 23 of these MVP's first 9 seasons and reviewed every player they played with during that first 9-year span to see how many teammates each individual had during that time that were named to an All-Star team, made an All-NBA team, or was selected to an All-NBA defensive team. And the first thing that jumps out of the page here is that only 10 of the 23 players won a title in their first 9 years in the NBA, meaning less than half of all of the league MVPs for the last 40 years won a single title at this stage of their career. And less than 1/3 of those 23, 7 to be precise, won multiple titles in that span. The MVP with the most championships in their first 9 seasons was Magic Johnson, as he won all 5 of his 5 NBA titles within the first 9 seasons of his career. Not surprisingly though, Magic also played with the most teammates who were either selected to an All-Star team, made an All-NBA team selection, or were selected to an All-NBA defensive team, with his supporting cast combining for an astonishing 32 All-League selections within just his first 9 seasons. Second on this list was Magic's principal foe during the 1980s, Larry Bird, who checks in with teammates of his earning 29 All-League selections, while he utilized that wealth of talent to win all 3 of his career titles in his first 9 seasons. And checking in at number 3 on this list with a supporting cast that boasted 23 All-League honors in his first 9 seasons is none other than the baby-faced assassin Steph Curry, who, like Bird, also won 3 titles during those first 9 years in the NBA. And now joining Bird and Curry is Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Tim Duncan, all of which won 3 NBA championships in their first 9 seasons in the league. The only other multiple-time winner on that list is Shaquille O'Neal, who won 2 titles in his first 9 years. But all of the players mentioned to this point, all of them with multiple NBA titles at this stage of their career, all played with a substantial amount of highly decorated supporting casts. The only one of these 23 guys who played with teammates that garnered fewer than 10 All-League honors in their first 9 seasons, but were also able to win multiple titles, was of course Michael Jordan, who had a supporting cast for his first 9 seasons that earned just 9 total All-League selections. But yet, despite the limited supporting cast, he still won 3 titles during that span. And that is why he is the easy GOAT. 8 other players of the 23 MVPs over the last 40 years join MJ on the list of individuals who had teammates that received less than 10 All-League selections throughout their first 9 seasons. And of those 8 players, only 3 of them were able to win a single title, while none of them had more than 1. And those 3 players are LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Nikola Jokic. LeBron James, who, like Jordan, played with teammates that were selected to only 9 All-League honors in his first 9 seasons. But while Jordan parlayed that minimal lack of help into 3 titles, the self-proclaimed king had just 1 championship through his first 9 years. Of all of the 23 names on this list, every player that ever won a league MVP over the last 40 years, there is only one individual that never had a teammate make an all-star team, get an all-NBA team selection, or make an all-NBA defensive selection for their first 9 seasons that they were in the NBA, and that is Nikola Jokic. None. Not once. And that guy somehow won a championship in his first 9 years. And the player who had a supporting cast in his first 9 seasons that received the second least all-league honors, second that is to Jokic's 0, was Kevin Garnett with just 4. And what KG did with those dreadful supporting casts was miss the playoffs as a rookie, then get eliminated in the first round over the next 7 consecutive seasons of his career. So Garnett did not even make it out of the first round until his 9th NBA season, when he lost in the Western Conference Finals. And from there, Garnett would stay in Minnesota just 3 more seasons where they would fall off of a cliff, finishing well below 500 for his last 3 years with the Wolves before tucking his tail between his legs and jumping to the Boston Celtics to join 2 perennial All-Stars and Hall of Famers, where he would steal his one and only ring. Does this sound familiar? LeBron James, playing with minimal levels of talent for his first 7 years in Cleveland, was incapable of winning anything. So he crawled his ass to South Beach and amassed an unbeatable super team, which he won his one and only title with in the first 9 years of his career. Nikola Jokic, with less help than either, has won an NBA championship already. Every player on this list with anywhere remotely close to the minimal level of help Jokic has had has failed miserably in the playoffs, with the exception of Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yet for some reason, when these other players all failed, they were given excuses for their failures because of the lack of supporting casts they had during their careers to this point. There is a reason Hakeem Olajuwon, who should be a staple on everyone's top 10 all-time list, is regarded so highly, despite winning only 2 titles in his 18-year career, because he didn't have enough help. And he wasn't expected to win at the level of others who were surrounded by more. And Nikola Jokic has had less help than him, the least of any MVP winner over the last 40 seasons. Now, again, and to be clear, that does not excuse him from choking away a 20-point lead at home in a Game 7. But how the hell did we work our way to a point where we expect this guy to win every year? This championship game is hard. It wasn't supposed to be easy. The reason LeBron is criticized to the levels that he is because he himself asked for the bar to be raised to that level. To be raised to a point where, yes, he must win a title every single year. When you systematically surround yourself with league-wide top 10 players for nearly 15 straight years, those are the stakes. Magic won 5 titles. Great for him. He played with 2 top 50 players to do it. And frankly, if you look at all of the dynastic players who have won a multitude of titles during their times in the league, they all had a ton of help around them. Either players like Bird, LeBron, and Duncan, routinely surrounded by multiple all-star caliber players, or guys like Jordan and Kobe, who while only ever had one guy, had one historically great guy in Pippen and Shaq. And even while Kobe won 2 straight titles without a single other top 75 player, he still had at the time a perennial all-star in Pau Gasol. Jokic doesn't have that guy. He never has. Many people want to make it Jamal Murray, but he hasn't been consistently reliable and elite, which is why he has never made a single All-Star or All-NBA selection. Also, Jamal Murray has missed the entirety of the postseason 2 of the last 4 years with injuries and didn't look particularly healthy this season while he was averaging 20.6 points per game on 20.7 field goal attempts during the entire playoffs. Karl Malone played with teammates that combined for 22 All-League selections in his first 9 seasons, more than any player on this list, except for Magic, Bird, and Curry, and he won nothing with all of that help. Ditto for Charles Barkley, who checks in with 18, and Kevin Durant, who had 15. Jokic won a title with 0. And again, to be totally clear, that doesn't excuse him from being incapable of closing a game they led by 20 in. And the ramifications for that failure is that Jokic, for the time, is outside of those conversations he was attempting to get into at the start of these playoffs. But for a guy that just turned 29 in February, he does still have time to add to that plus side of his ledger. And unlike every other alleged great player of this post-2010 era, Jokic isn't begging for more help, breaking the system, looking to steal any cheap rings. So if you want to subtract points from him against previous era's greats, so be it. But he is as good as it gets or better compared to anyone that has played in the last 15 years or so, and he still has plenty of time to wedge himself into those other conversations.